Welcome back. Joining me now is former Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee Chair Michael Danby. And Michael, thanks for joining me. I've got a lot to unpack with you this evening. You've called for a royal commission into the Bondi terrorist attack, and now the families of the victims have called for one. Why won't the Prime Minister listen and go ahead and launch one?
Well, traditionally, royal commissions have very wide-ranging powers, and they are certainly not controllable. Of course, that depends to some extent on the judge and the terms of reference, but they can be very intrusive into emails, discussions between ministers and agencies. So there's a very creditable public servant who is being asked to do this departmental inquiry, the former Director General of ASIO and our ambassador to Beijing, Dennis Richardson, but he doesn't have the ability to compel people. Now, the State Royal Commission, it's less clear also that they would have the power to interview federal ministers or agencies. Probably Albo would have to give them the ability to do that, but the nightmare for this socialist left government would be Sofronoff. Remember that name, Jamie? He was the bloke who was appointed in the ACT and went rogue on the ACT government and produced findings that were completely out of kilter for them. So you'd be worried that a Royal Commissioner would look back at the last 2 years and find out that Albo, Burke and Wong did things or didn't do things that contributed to the disaster in Bondi.
Well, you've also warned of broader security risks which needed to be addressed. Are you disappointed that Federal Parliament wasn't recalled to pass the Siegel report recommendations?
In the end, ideology catches up with itself. So the reason they don't want that is because they have a profound view that some of her recommendations about the ABC, about the media, about academia, about the cultural organisations, about the immigration policy, they all feed into each other. That's the Siegel report. And if they proceeded with it, Burke, Wong and Albo wouldn't be pleased with it. So they'll do everything they can to fight considering that report. But in the end, God forbid, Jeremy, if there's another attack by Islamic extremists on Australia, on the public, it won't be solved just by having policemen with long rifles this time to suppress them. So events, hard events, in the end catch up with people despite their ideological predilections.
You're right, Michael, and we need information to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Let's head overseas now, and I'd love to get your thoughts on what you think about the meeting today between Zelensky and Trump. I watched the press conference when the two of them came out, and I'm no body language expert, but I must say it looked like quite a friendly rapport between the two, and it almost felt as though a peace deal could be not too far away.
Well, very observant of you. It's the body language sometimes that tells you more than the actual words. The big benefit for those of us who support Ukraine is that there was no walkout. There was no pushing of Zelensky out of the White House. No one was shouting at each other. So just all being in the same room, speaking civilly, is we're in advance of where we were. And it surprised me to hear that Donald Trump has agreed to go to Kiev and to speak to the Rada, to the Ukrainian parliament. That is such a plus. I believe if people go there on the ground and see, you know, Ukraine is a democratic country in Europe, that it just wants to live a modern, open, democratic life like the rest of the Europeans, and what's being done to them every night by the Russians. Hopefully, Putin will stop bombing Kiev the night Trump actually speaks to the Rada. But isn't it incredible that while these two were discussing events at Mar-a-Lago that affect the peace of Europe, that Putin was bombing Ukraine with 600 drones and missiles all through the night. And the poor people there apartment buildings being blown up in Kiev, etc. I mean, the man is a beast, Putin.
He is. And Ukraine, they've suffered terribly during this war. They've lost about 12% of their territory and a quarter of their people have been displaced, with hundreds of thousands of casualties. Half of their infrastructure is gone, and it is time for this war to end. But what, in your mind, what are the sticking points to achieving peace?
Well, to my amazement, the Ukrainians have agreed to some territorial concessions in giving up a little bit of the Donbass, where they have their fortifications built, in order to get back some of the province of Zaporizhia, where the huge nuclear power plant that is the biggest in Europe is situated. So I don't believe Putin will agree to this. So I think it's very intelligent of Zelensky and his team to agree to far-reaching concessions, even beyond what I think the Ukrainian people would accept, because you'll expose Putin's determination to destroy a potentially European country next to him. The thing that Putin doesn't want is Ukraine to become like Poland and grow by 60% since the end of communism, because that will be a real challenge to him in Russia. If Ukraine was to prosper as it should without a war, what a challenge that would be to the terrible slave serf system that he runs in Russia.
I want to stick with overseas, and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un sent Vladimir Putin an interesting New Year's message, sharing that the two countries' alliance is formed by sharing blood, life and death. What do you make of their close bond?
Well, it's quite sinister. It's Iran, China, North Korea and Russia. They're the four authoritarian regimes that are trying to impose their will on the rest of the world. The North Koreans have provided, some people say, up to 50% of the 155mm artillery shells, which is the basic ammunition of artillery on the Ukrainian front, and they've sent thousands of North Korean elite soldiers to attack the Ukrainian people in their own country. So he means what he says. I know the Donald refers to him as the little rocket man, but he's another very dangerous dictator. We're at the cusp of history here, and how the world reacts to resisting this group of four nations is crucial to the peaceful future of the world.
And Michael, just very quickly, I mean, Trump keeps declaring that Putin is a good friend of his, so you would think he might be the man to be able to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia.
It's excruciating to hear some of that talk. If he just put sanctions, as 85 members of the 100 members of the Senate in the United States wanted, he could grind Mr. Putin into accepting some of the peace arrangements that are reasonably put forward by the Ukrainians.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time this evening.